Is a 90-day window an unrealistic time frame?
Well, I think there's a lot of urgency here. The president campaigned on a lot of these issues, and the other countries are responding. I am encouraged to hear more and more details about other countries coming to the table to really level the playing field. That's what we need to do, and long term, I think this can be very healthy.
Do you think, though, that the kind of oscillations we have seen from President Trump when it comes to tariff policy, this week not being the first time a threatened tariff has been enacted and then pulled back or otherwise delayed, does that in any way damage the credibility the administration is bringing to these negotiations? Is a little bit of leverage lost when we're not necessarily willing always to stick to the original plan?
Well, I think going back to the first Trump administration, a very aggressive trade posture, a trade agenda that I think most reasonable people would say was very successful. Then enter the Biden 4 years that was not successful in many ways, but especially on trade. And there's no such thing as treading water on trade. We are either gaining ground or we are losing ground. And when we have other countries coming to us like they are right now, I think that's important to note. I'm not a huge fan of tariffs, so let me be very clear. I know they need to be a tool in the toolbox. And I think we are seeing other countries respond in a way that is advantageous to us. It's advantageous to consumers across America.
Well, one country that doesn't seem to have elicited the response the White House would like at this point is China. Instead, in response to the 145% tariff the U.S. has placed on Chinese imports, China today raised its own tariff on U.S. imports to 125%. I know your district, according to the U.S.-China Business Council, this is the latest data we have from 2023, exported $1.3 billion worth of goods to China that year. What impact will this have at home? How long do you anticipate it will last?
Well, it's my hope that we can move forward quickly on bringing, agreements. I know that China is an outlier. Certainly, China acts differently on a lot of fronts. And so I'm concerned, though, like when China buys a huge order of soybeans from Brazil. That just happened. I'm concerned about that. I think we need to be very vigilant, but also have the expectation that China can do better than what it has. During President Trump's first term, there was a deal with China. China did not make good on that agreement itself. So, yes, I'm concerned about some of these numbers that I see from China, but it's also not in their best interest to maintain high tariffs either. So, especially in the long term. So I think that the more dialogue we can have, the more engagement we can have, I think we can see more positive results down the road.
And while we await those results, do you anticipate it's going to be necessary to provide subsidies to farmers that may be hit hardest by a trade spat between the U.S. and China, as we saw during the first administration? And is that something Congress is going to be able and willing to provide at a time when you are also pushing for steep spending cuts across the board?
Well, there's certainly the concern there. I know that we need to get a farm bill passed. I think it's premature to say that there needs to be aid payments, especially when we don't even have a new farm bill in place. So there are a lot of reasons we need to get our work done here on Capitol Hill, whether it's a farm bill, whether it's tax policy, whether it's regulatory policy, trade policy. Obviously, there's a lot happening, and I think the world knows that we need to get our work done. The American people knows the American people know that we need to get our work done as well. So I'm encouraged by yesterday's vote that we can move forward with our large bill on tax and regulatory and energy and the border. The fact that we were able to take another step forward yesterday is great news to getting this done, because, like I said, it's important that we get our work done.
Well, and that gets us to the kind of revenue part of this tariff conversation, Congressman, in our final moment here. I wonder what conversations or what math the Ways and Means Committee or the Trade Subcommittee that you lead within it is doing when it comes to actual anticipated revenue from these tariffs. Because at the kind of rates we're talking about with China, for example, most economists have told me that means the volume of imports is going to go down, even if the rate is higher. How is the mathing for you? What kind of numbers are you coming up with?
Well, I'm not one who wants to rely on tariff revenue for our budget. I just don't want to rely on that philosophy, actually. So as we sort through all of this, I mean, there are a lot of things that we need to adjust in our tax policy, although we know what we did in 2017 was largely very successful. So we've got the numbers on that. There are other things that we need to adjust or modernize, perhaps. But again, business expensing, for example, is very important, especially as we see domestic producers want to expand here in America. That's really what we intended to do in 2017, was encourage more productivity. And so the opportunity to do that, and we see a long list of U.S. companies looking to expand domestically, they can benefit from our tax policy. We better make sure that it's either permanent or extended well into the future, but preferably permanent.